Welcome, guys. I am so grateful that you guys have decided to join this movement, join this tribe of Primal Sutra. We believe in going back to the fundamentals, back to the source, back to the origin again. And from there, we actually created a system that got people from low to flow. And we've been recreating this process for a long time now. It's been more than 2 years. And I started this channel all the way back in like 2020, I believe, when COVID first hit. And now this channel is at 4,000. Um, I'm really excited because a lot of people needed to hear this information. Spiritual evolution is happening at such a rapid pace that people actually need to understand what is going on, from now until the future. I'm going to sneeze. I'm going to sneeze. I have an ascension flu, so I might sneeze during this. But essentially, I wanted to speak today about what Primal Sutra actually is. We had a podcast last night, also Primal Sutra for Newbies. But just another recap is this understanding of we started this process from a process called matches into dates, where we started to understand that as people are in relationships, they're getting into a lot of triggered shadow reactions, okay? Pain body attacks and so forth. So that was a clue where we had to understand we had to heal the boy and then the man would appear. We have to heal the girl and then the woman will appear, right? You have to understand that there is a process happening in the background oftentimes, and it's this subconscious reality that we got to confront. Once we confront it, once we understand it, once we know how to symbolize our mind, and we use archetypes and we begin our journeys in individuation. First, you have to individuate, then you have to connect with the collective. You can't do it any other way. You can't be so involved in the collective because then you're going to take away from your individuality, actually, right? Think about it. Like if you were just in a hive mind or a sports team or something like this, and you just went with their principles instead of having your own discernment or having your own willpower or having this sense of like, I am the cause, I am the ripple in my life, right? I'm not at the effect. You'll notice a lot of the times people who are addicted to pain or in more darker lifestyles, different ways that they're living, which is lower consciousness, you'll start to notice they have more likelihood of getting possessed by an entity. Okay, number one. Now, I believe in channeling, not possession. I think the main difference is one, you have control over it, and the other, you don't. Okay. One, you are actively in the driver's seat, but you're in the background. You're almost in the, actually, you're in the driver's seat next to the driver. And you're letting the driver drive, but you're also keeping a keen eye on what's happening. Whereas the other one, it's like you're no more there. You're just, this driver's pushed you to the passenger back seat in a sense, and they're just completely in control of the vehicle. So understand that people in a darker state of mind, what I'll often see them do is be fully at the effect and not at the cause. So they lose their ability to be the cause, actually. You notice a lot of these people, they overconsume things. Okay, this might be you watching also. So I'm not saying this is not you. Okay, you could be very dark. You could be very negative. You could be very depressed. But this is a pattern that you have to wake up to. You see, you have a choice and a freedom to change your circumstance, to change your reality today. And yet you still choose to remain confused, remain with a lack of clarity, remain almost future projecting, right, into a negative reality instead of actually living in the now. And I think that we've all got to really realize this and wake up to the fact that once you change the core, it's a domino effect that changes the rest. Okay. Anybody have any questions, by the way? Okay, 2 people watching. Let's go. So I really wanted to emphasize this because I think this is an important attribute of your spiritual path and your spiritual journey. I started my spiritual path kind of by accident. Okay, so this is kind of how it happened. So my father had always been very, very spiritual and growing up, and he would go and visit these monks, right? When I was younger, much younger, like in my teens. And I always thought that he was missing and he didn't want to be around my mom and so forth. Maybe that was the truth. Maybe that was the case. I don't know. Um, but I saw this kind of I saw it at the time as neglect, not that he was acquiring spiritual information. So later on in my life, when I became an adult and I confronted him and I saw that, he was after his retirement, what my father did is he started to teach Vajrayana Buddhism. He started to take this tech that he learned from his gurus and bring it forth into the world with his own center that we have here in Kolkata. So if you ever want to visit, shoot me a message. Let me know on my Instagram, and I can point you. I can point you towards my father's meditation classes. And I remember in Delhi once my dad had a home in Delhi because he used to work for um, basically he used to work for an initiative in Delhi, IDRC, so he's associated with the Canadian government. Is like research and agriculture development and research. Um, so both my parents are doctors, but both of them went into public health, right? And so I started to understand, okay, I love psychology, I love studying the mind, but I don't want to get wrapped up in abnormalities and looking at schizophrenia and like all these disorders. I understand them and I still studied them in my own time, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of interesting, but I didn't want to make that my main focus. What I wanted my main focus to be was motivation, peak performance, okay? And I understood this because I was hyper creative as a child and I was a rapper as a child, growing up, watching 8 Mile, rap battling on forums online and so forth. And I also had a fascination for cartoons and comic books in this kind of invisible world, right? Ever since I was very young. And then I started to explore more and more as I started to grow older. I started to realize that these are actually beings that I'm communicating with, right? And we found this out through a process of actually isolating and going into nature. I found it at least first when I was going into doors, um, where I made that leap of faith, you could say, into channeling. And when I started to do it at first, it was like, there was a lot of doubt, skepticism. What is he doing? Is he going crazy? Okay. A lot of doubts for my family too. They didn't really know what I was doing. Um, I think they still don't. I mean, I try to explain it to them the best way that I can, but it's difficult. There is a generation gap that I feel. And I think a lot of you might feel like this. You might feel like I don't fit in. I'm the black sheep. Nobody understands the spiritual reality that I'm in. And if you come to our community, I will tell you that there have been far too many synchronicities to count. Okay. And a lot of you have been commenting it on this channel too. You've been like, I've been thinking about something and then suddenly I see a video on it. Okay. So clearly you're tapping into the same stream of information that I'm tapping into. Okay. There's something here in the background that's emerging. And I'm just trusting in that invisible energy, man. Just using my discernment that it's not like bringing me to the dark side or whatever, like having some understanding of that, right? Because a lot of the ideals on this planet right now are very, very dark. They are. They're satanic, they're Luciferian, they're Ahriman inspired, So I would say that if you can find that personal relationship with God, okay, your personal relationship, I don't mean under the structure of a religion or anything like this. I mean an actual communication with your divine self. And through that understanding of your higher self, which comes from it being closer to God than you are now. So understand that when you're tapping into this energy of super consciousness, you're putting on God goggles. So if you were to see your situation with God goggles, you would actually have to zoom out, right? You would actually have to see the whole perspective differently. We call ourselves gods in trainings, not because we're trying to be gods or whatever, but we understand that we have a godlike potential and also that we might be very high up there. We might be angels, we might be ascended masters, right? So our higher selves are giving us a glimpse, a reminder of our bodhisattva selves, our enlightened selves. And this is what we're tapping into. This is the energy of the collective. And truly, I believe this movement is so powerful because a lot of people deny the primal aspects, right? A lot of people think that animals are ruthless and dangerous and there's no mercy. And I agree, the laws of nature are very fundamental, but it also converts into, male-female dynamics at times with evolutionary psych and a lot of overlap with those, right? And I'm understanding it more and more each day as I merge and blend the worlds of spirituality and science together, which is actually, if you really think about it, it's the Bruce Lee's mentality of mechanical instinct, right? It's the instinct with the mechanics associated with it. And I've understood that this is such a powerful mentality to have because you're not only tapping into that instinct that we're all tapping into, right? This primal instinct to recreate things, to reproduce things, to leave a legacy, to, have our genetics move forward. It's more so like I'm using that energy to move myself into such a space where I become one with the task that I'm doing. And this is really what flow state is. If you really think about it, if you boil it down, it's really a vehicle to get you to move from A to B. And this is why we work with a lot of symbols associated with flow state, because I have a background in positive psychology, which is associated with the concept of flow by Csikszentmihalyi. I don't know if you've heard of that book or if you're hearing it for the first time, but flow state is a state where nothing else matters to you but what you're doing, right? So it's a state of hyperfocus. It's a state where you lose a sense of time, you lose your sense of self or identity. Okay? You forget who you are because you're so immersed in it, right? And things are effortless. You don't have to force things. It's the path of least resistance. So when you tap into your flow state, you're closer to God in a sense, okay? And I understood that if I started to use symbols like the Makara of the Hindu pantheon, this is a cartoonized version, obviously. However, I still love to do things like this because, again, making something like this, which is an art piece, arts and crafts, actually doing it with my hands, I think the deity or the entity that I'm working with, the being that I'm working with, appreciates more than somebody just buying them something pre-made, Because for this, I had to put in my time, energy, and, I had to create a blank space. I got to get a canvas, right? And all of this actually stacks up to cause a greater ripple effect for certain mystical rituals that you might be activating. Now, I want you to understand something, and it's actually very interesting because it came from this Irish chick that I was connecting with. And she was saying something about the lines of like how St. Patrick basically is casting the snakes out, right? What does that mean? It's basically it's a banishing of this kind of pagan rituals, right? But not pagan rituals in the sense of like us being connected to nature, because that's really what paganism was back in the days. This kind of more like the Jedi, like the force with nature, right? Being able to utilize it and merge with those energies, and it's almost tantric in its nature, right? But nowadays it's kind of changed over time because we don't have those same ideals anymore, and spirituality has evolved past that. So if you're still a pagan witch, you're doing and practicing like the old school methods, you're not maybe up to date on the newest tech. And at Primal Sutra, we're constantly refining and finding what is the newest technology as well as the old wisdom. So we're finding a bridge between old and new. And I think that's what creativity really is. It's looking at something in the old, but with new eyes. So once we raise in our consciousness and we look at all these techniques and we bring them through and we start working on them and challenging ourselves and our characters, we are going to morph and manifest into what we want to be. Our self-image is going to reflect how we actually feel with it, right? Our inner and outer worlds will start to merge. So this is really what was empowering for me, right? And I think about this a lot. I think about this idea of like, if I were to be anything, right? If I were to be anything, no holds barred, no kind of rules per se, like only this much budget or only this much time you have left. What would you want to do eternally? What would you actually like if time, money, status, all of that wasn't an option? What would you do irregardless of that? I want you to tap into that energy because that's really a flow. You're tapping into a flow. You're tapping into a topic you can talk about endlessly with your friends. right? There's a special gift for you there. If you can talk about it more than an hour or 2 hours, there's something special about that topic in there for you that is leading you into the path of least resistance. That's one clue. But then there's many other clues like your upbringing and so forth, right? So knowing your attachment styles, doing all these psychopathology, okay? Doing all these psychology quizzes and questionnaires will give you more clarity as you start to integrate and bring them together and find the overlaps within those, right? So this is what's really going to help you. I have to get going soon because I have a session right now with somebody who's booked it in today. So unfortunately, if you have any questions, guys, now's the time to ask, okay? Now's the time to type something in. But I deeply appreciate this, you know? Excuse me, I have a bit of a sore throat today. But I'm feeling good. I'm feeling glad that people are slowly figuring out this channel, you know, what it's about and so forth. I will be posting more art of seduction content, more stuff around tantric riz. That seems to be a very popular topic. I know yesterday, like 100 views, right? Just going on live on my phone. So yeah, maybe I'll go live on my phone. Maybe you guys don't get this message, some of you, when I do it on the laptop. Next steps is improvement in gut health, improvement in figuring out ways to plan travel. That's definitely something that I need to work on, my organization skills and so forth, my law and order, right? My ability to say enough is enough. This is the distance. This is the boundary. This is the understanding. Okay, getting clarity on things. The next level up of character in my Apex April, I'm saying, is I'm finding that side of me that connects with both the fist and the handshake. That was Raphael's download. So, you know, the soul exists in the handshake as well as the fist. That's a deep philosophy that I'm tapping into now. Also understanding that there is a part of me that wants to, it could be like a superficial thing on the surface, but I think it's a very deep practice underneath that, which is basically the understanding of, you know, building a new world, having tantric sex to reprogram each other's minds, and basically enlightening through penis and vagina, right? Enlightenment through that. Um, which again, this might be a completely superficial, horny guy download, right? From some of my deities. Could be. I work with a lot of very interesting characters. Some of you guys know them, okay? Some of you guys have come to the Monday sessions and you've met some of these, you've interacted with some of these beings. But some of you are coming across this for the first time. Maybe weird, I don't know. I can't trust this. There's a lot of skepticism, right? And that's exactly the energy with which you want to explore this, actually. You don't want to be like a gullible person who just like, you know, jumps into something. You want to ask the questions, you want to get a feel for the experience, you want to get a vibe for it, you know? If you and I are not on the same vibe, then kudos to you and adios, okay? But if you feel like there's something here, there's something invisible here that you are connecting to, and you feel like there is something here that is enriching, that is going to add value to you, that is going to give you a gemstone that you're able to create your kingdom or your queendom with, right? Then I would actually have you stay on and listen and absorb the lessons, because oftentimes I'm getting these lessons too from these beings, you know? It's blowing my mind just like it's blowing yours, you know? And I think that it's powerful to understand this because not a lot of us give credence or you know, credibility to channeling, unless it's like, you know, Law of One or Seth Speaks or all these channeled texts. I think we eventually have to create some kind of a text for this, where we either create a Primal Sutra grimoire with all the deities we work with, and you know, there's going to be a few things coming up with that. So highly excited to tap into this. I hope you guys are ready. Let's get it today. Upward spiral gang. May we never be the same again. hit that like and subscribe button. We're all here to win. Don't forget where you came from. Remember who you are. And remember,